is because we're in a world of AI. AI is making creating videos so much easier. So it is really a way to save a tremendous amount of time is to use AI tools, whether you're using it to help you record your videos, to edit those videos, or to do everything. Because there are generative AI content creators that are out there that creation tools, I should say, not creators, but generative AI content creation tools that are out there that will allow you to create your videos without you having to be in them. And they're getting better as we progress. So I would think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot more generative AI content on YouTube in particular.
Welcome to the Sales Problem Podcast. Here is the problem we are trying to solve. Every year you hit the reset button and you have to beat your numbers and grow your business. You have to get quicker, faster, and better. We are two guys trying to solve that sales problem, trying to help you grow by enhancing what you know about the art and science of selling and personal development. Along the way, we're going to interview some interesting characters and debate some different angles about this common business problem. So thanks for joining us. Let's get growing. Welcome back to the Sales Problem Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Burns, and joining me is my fabulous co-host. Wait a second, Steve Comerford is not here this week. Steve is on vacation, so I am flying solo this week, but the show must go on. The podcast must go on. Steve, if you end up listening to this, I hope you're getting some good downtime in Newfoundland, and I hope you head over to Trapper John's and kiss the cod for me. Today, once again, we're solving the sales problem, so let's start talking answers. I have a question, again, for all you listeners. I mean, we know that video killed the radio star, but I want to know, how are you communicating in your business? Is it the old-fashioned flyers? Are you sending out emails? Are you sending text messages or just picking up the phone and making cold calls? Or are you using video? And if you're not using video and you're not using the biggest search engine in the world, YouTube, to promote, to sell, or to engage your audience, well, this episode is going to be a game changer for you. And we've got with us Edie Clarke, who is an expert in this field. And instead of introducing Edie and going through a big bio, I'm going to jump right in and get into the conversation because I'm super excited for her to be here. Edie, welcome to the Sales Problem Podcast. How are you feeling today?
I am doing great, Daniel. Thanks for inviting me, and I look forward to hearing all of your questions.
Excellent. Well, you are an expert in this field, so tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to this point in your career.
Okay, I will make it as short as possible because it started a long time ago. I first got interested in video production when I was a teenager. So I ended up working at a local TV station, learned pretty much everything that you can learn at a TV station. Then went off and went to school for a very brief time because I kind of thought, oh, well, I worked at a TV station, so I know everything and I don't need to go to school for this. But anyway, I ended up working between post-production and production companies. And then I ultimately ended up moving to California, and I worked in film production as an assistant to a producer director. And I worked for a visual effects company and did a variety of different types of jobs before I moved back to New York. And then a few years after moving back to New York, I started my own production company with my husband, where we produced local commercials for local businesses in Brooklyn, which is where I live now. And then a few years after that, I kind of branched out on my own, decided that I wanted to work with entrepreneurs that were online because online was sort of coming up and being very, very popular at the time. So I started off really just working for speakers, creating speaker reels for them. And then YouTube started to get a little bit more popular because when it first came out in like 2005, 2006, I just thought it was a goofy place where you just posted videos for family to see, or, no one was taking it seriously when it first started. And then some years later, people started to take it a little bit more seriously. Brands started to use it. Businesses started to use it. I started to pay attention and started to try to figure out how could I incorporate it first for myself? And then was there a way for me to use this to help my audience as well? And so I then took courses and learned everything that I could through a lot of trial and error. And then decided to come up with a set number of services that I would offer my audience because I knew that they had specific issues. Like some of them maybe were uncomfortable being on camera, or they were uncomfortable using certain types of equipment, or they just didn't know what to do, or they didn't understand YouTube. So I wanted to create services that would help them ease the process for them in being able to use YouTube as a valuable tool, which is to help them market their businesses and services.
That is a fascinating story. And really, I find it so interesting because I think everybody that's listening can probably relate to the fact that at one time, TV and movies was the dominant form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
You turn on the TV, and if it was a big business anyways, they would be communicating through commercials. And then we slowly watched this transition to so much of our lives going online. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're consuming online versus going to the movies or
Yeah.
TV. And then we've seen Netflix, and that changed everything. And we had reality TV that was a game changer too. So much has transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
Wondering how many people have kind of kept up with that. So you mentioned trial and error. And I think that's where I want to go is the things that you've learned. That's why we brought you onto the podcast to share that expertise, because, anybody getting started is going to have to go through that learning curve. So I'd love to dig into some of the things by having already gone through it. So let's get right to the good stuff for our listeners. And from your perspective, what's the number one thing that you can recommend to salespeople or to coaches or business people or entrepreneurs that are going to help them create growth by using video content or YouTube as a communication tool?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's really important that if you're going to use video, and in particular YouTube, which I am now 100% proponent of, you need to focus on what is it that your audience wants and what is it that they need in order for you to basically be able to create that content for them. And I know that a lot of people tend to assume, oh, well, I don't want to give away, valuable information and knowledge that I have for free. But you're not telling them from A to Z exactly what it is that they need to do to the point where they don't need to hire you. You're giving them immediate responses and answers to their pain points because you want them to see that A, there is a relief for them, and B, that you're the person that's ideally suited based on your knowledge and expertise to help them. So in that vein, also, it's really important that you be as authentic as possible and true to who you are. So don't try to follow what other people are doing and try to, mirror what you're seeing others do. Really be your authentic self. Like one of the ways that I'm authentic is that I remember having a sales coach a number of years ago tell me that before you go live, before you shoot your video, you need to make sure that you're wearing makeup and that you're dressed to the nines and that you're wearing a lipstick color that pops. I don't wear makeup. So that was something I fought with for a really long time. I actually did what she did at first, but it made me feel very uncomfortable and I wasn't being true to who I was. So I firmly believe that you need to just be whoever you are, embrace it. And then the last thing is that it's really important that you have a lot of patience with the process because it isn't something that overnight you're going to have success with. And it is very important also that you be persistent. You can't try something and then, oh, well, it's not really working. I'm not getting any views. I'm not, whatever the negative response is. You have to be persistent in order for you to be able to see your channel grow and your content resonate with your ideal audience. So overall, it just takes a lot of time and effort on your part in order for you to succeed.
I love so much of what you just said. just in that one answer, I think, boom, there is. So all of our listeners, go back and just listen to that again, because I think there's so much right in her first statement here. The thing that stuck out to me was creating value. Creating value for, your end customer from a sales perspective is so
Yeah.
important. And if
Yeah.
you're trying to hold on to that expertise rather than be somebody who comes in and gives that, and creates that value for somebody else, I think
Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah.
I want to highlight too about authenticity, because I
Mm.
think that's a one that people might struggle with. We're taught sometimes to put on that professional persona,
Mm-hmm.
and that when we come to work, we should be somebody that's polished and very
Right.
professional, and maybe not necessarily ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But is that something people are going to buy because you're not really being your true authentic self?
Right. It's really, really important to be yourself, because the thing is that, and it took me a little bit of time to recognize this, we each have our own people, our own tribe, our own crowd of people that are going to follow us because of who we are authentically to ourselves. And the only way that that person is going to learn whatever it is that they need to learn that you're an expert in is if someone like you is contacting them, is reaching out to them, is communicating with them and engaging with them. And so it's really important for you to be yourself, because that's the only way that you're going to become authentic. I could sit up here and try to be some, flashy, YouTube that has, millions of subscribers. I don't. I'll be the first to tell you that my subscribers, I have roughly about 7,500 subscribers on my YouTube channel, but my size of my channel doesn't dictate my knowledge, and it doesn't dictate how much I am willing to help my clients and go to the ends of the earth to make sure that they understand what it is that they need to do in order to better themselves when it comes to YouTube. And so I'm not letting the size of my channel in terms of vanity numbers impact what I'm able to bring to the table. And so that's something that I really want people to recognize, is that your unique audience is out there and they're waiting for you, and they can only learn from you. And this took me a while, because it wasn't until I started to get feedback with most of my videos from day one. I always got feedback. It's really amazing how YouTube is, because no matter whether you're new or if you're seasoned, you're going to get engagement on your videos. And I remember hearing people post in my comments, I watched a video on this topic on so many other channels, but I didn't understand it until I watched your video. And so that made me recognize that my voice was unique and I was being authentic in whatever it was that I was saying, that that person was able to understand what I was saying and how I was saying it, that it helped them, even though they had gone through. And I don't know how many other YouTube channels they had watched, but they had obviously gone through more than one, and finally got to mine, where I was able to articulate what I was talking about in a way that they were able to understand. So I want everyone who is not currently using YouTube to recognize that your unique people are there, and they actually only can really understand what it is that you teach, even though there might be a whole bunch of people that do what you do, from you. And so if you're not there, you're missing out on an opportunity to help them, and they're missing out on an opportunity to work with you. Because even though you might be giving content away for free, a lot of those people will end up hiring you at some point to work on a project or to consult or coach them. So I really advertise that using YouTube and creating content and sharing your knowledge and expertise on that platform is a game winner for everyone.
I think it's a perfect segue for us to talk about differentiation, because as salespeople, we have to find a way to be a little bit different. And we're talking about video content, and we're talking about YouTube, and the amount of content that everyone is consuming has just kept increasing.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so important to be a part of this podcast, for us to talk about it, because it is increasing. Now, with that said, that means that there's more noise than there's ever been. So how does one kind of break through that noise and be different and distinguish themselves so that their message can stand out in some way or be heard?
One of the biggest steps that it took me a minute to learn, and that I teach my audience, is that you have to have clarity before you even hit the record button. So it's really important that you understand, what is your why? Why are you wanting to do this? Why do you think your audience needs to know this information? How is it going to be the game changer for them? How is it going to be beneficial to them? What is it that you specifically do that is of value to your audience? And then the most important thing is that you do need to look at what is already out there. So you need to identify who your competitors are. And I use competitors, but it's really peers, because I don't see anyone, even if you do the same thing, as a competitor, primarily because of the fact that we speak to different audiences. We may talk about the same thing, but our audiences are completely different. And I gave you the example of why I believe that. And so by really doing the research that you need to do with who's out there, what are they doing? How are they presenting themselves? What's the reaction and the response from their viewers? Is there something that's similar that you guys do? Is there something that's completely night and day? And is there anywhere in between where you could try to fit in because it's not being covered? So that is, to me, the way that you can truly break through the noise, is by gaining clarity, either through defining your why, identifying your niche, or discovering and researching your competition or peers.
Oh, that's amazing. Clarity. We just had an entire episode on getting clear.
Oh, really?
And really trying to communicate. Yeah, we had Brian Miller on, and he talked about just say the damn thing. Get to the point if you're really clear, so that you can cut through and reach that audience.
Yeah.
So I think you just nailed it. Clarity is so important. Edie, is there a time where YouTube is just not the right solution for people? There's so many platforms that are out there, but how does somebody recognize when video is the right thing, or when, which platform might be the right one for them and which might be the wrong fit?
Yeah. I've grappled with this question in the past before, and the main reason is because YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. So if someone is searching for a problem, they want to get a solution to a pain point or an issue, I can only speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure most of your listeners go to Google and they type in, how do I fill in the blank? And so on one hand, I don't believe that there is any niche or anyone that should not be on that platform, because of the sole reason, because of the fact that it's a search engine. However, if you know your audience through and through, and you know that your audience absolutely hates video in the form of, they would prefer to read white papers. They're very, into reading their content as opposed to visually watching something or listening to something. And I don't even know what industries those could be. And I wouldn't even go so far as to say it's a certain demographic, because YouTube is for everyone, regardless of their age, as long as they can watch videos and hear the content from as young as you can think of to as old as you can think of, they all watch and use YouTube. So I would have to say it would have to be what you understand personally from your audience. And if they are people that devour long, blocks and blocks of papers that they would rather read through, then obviously then that's not the platform for you. Other than that, YouTube and video is for everyone. And proof of the fact that video is so powerful was that back in 2017, I believe, Facebook was the first social media platform to incorporate video. And it was because they saw the impact that YouTube was having. And then after Facebook, every other social media platform allows and incorporates video. Some are solely video, but they're short form like Snapchat and TikTok. So video is vitally important. And I can't personally see an industry or a niche that wouldn't benefit from it. So I might be biased, but that's my answer.
I just want to pause on that, Edie, and acknowledge how important I think that really is,
Mm-hmm.
and how valuable that insight is to our listeners. Because if social media platforms have transitioned to video and are now prioritizing video,
Yep.
it's only because the world wants communication in that form.
Yes.
If it didn't, it wouldn't prioritize it. We wouldn't be
Exactly.
seeing that trend happening. So if you're not doing video, I think this is the moment where, I need our listeners to kind of check themselves and say,
Mm-hmm.
why is it that I'm not
Right.
creating some type of content?
Yeah.
Why is my voice not being heard? Do I have something valuable to bring to my end client? I think what I see a lot in sales specifically is, salespeople wondering if they need to be on social media to grow their business,
Mm-hmm.
grappling with how to do it and the barriers. So you've got such a great background with TV and movies and things that I'm sure you were able to jump in and be quite good. For those who are not accustomed to it or comfortable, what would you suggest in terms of, it can be time consuming to create that
Mm-hmm.
content? You've got multiple tools, multiple platforms that they could choose. How does somebody make it easy to say, I'm not doing it now, I want to get started, and here's how I kind
Right.
of jump in?
Well, first, even though I came from a video and film background, I was never in front of the camera. So therefore, that was not something that I was comfortable with. I used to run away from cameras. So I can totally relate to anyone that is apprehensive because of the fact that they're just not comfortable being on camera. The first batch of videos I used to do, because I focused my energy on helping my audience, a lot of my videos were tutorial or how-to videos. And that and FAQ videos are probably still to this day the number one and number two types of videos that I would recommend to anybody that's brand spanking new and they're like, I don't know what to create. That's the first types of videos that I would recommend that you do, because people are always searching for how to do something or they're searching for an answer. So those are the first two that I would recommend. And those types of videos, particularly the how-to videos, for me was easy because they were faceless videos, which basically meant you heard my voice, but you did not see my face and you just saw what I was doing, from a screen recorded perspective, because a lot of what I was doing was teaching you how to use YouTube, or I was teaching you how to use a particular type of software. Now, not necessarily everyone is going to be in that position where they have a software that they can just focus on, but you can certainly maneuver your way through a website or through documents. So there are still things that you can do, even if you're not in the world of, I'm not teaching someone how to, specifically use a particular software. I think today in 2023, that a lot more people are a little bit more comfortable being on camera because of everybody has Zoom. and is using Zoom for meetings and for things of that nature. So that sort of breaks down that barrier a little bit of, oh, I don't like being on camera, even though I do get that in some sales meetings online, you probably have your camera off. But if you can get into the habit of just being a little bit more comfortable in your Zoom meetings, that's just the next step. After that is doing, running a meeting and talking to, presenting to your audience or to your coworkers or things of that nature, which then the next step from that is doing live streams or doing live events. And those types of videos, even though they may not be classified as a video because it's, you're live streaming. So you're doing something live. It's organic. Webinars or live events also are that way. But once they're recorded, they become a video. So that's content that you can create. If you are blessed and you're interviewed for a video podcast like this, ideally all of your guests, Daniel, are on camera. So this is content that they could also use just to break that, because it does take a lot of practice of just either being comfortable seeing yourself or being comfortable hearing yourself. And you don't have to worry about, well, I don't like how I sound, because all honesty, I don't really look at a lot of my videos after they're done. I create my videos. Either me or my team will edit those videos. And once they are public, I don't look at them again. But other people could say, oh, it was really good. Okay, great. But I'm not a fan of watching myself. And if I did obsess over myself, I think my ego would prevent me from actually publishing any of my content. So that's the method that I've chosen, is to not really focus on myself so much and really focus on the audience. But another thing that you could do is you could do shorts. If you don't want to, you can't even fathom sitting in front of a camera for 5-10 minutes at a time, then just do shorts, whether they're for TikTok or for YouTube, so that at least you can, again, get into the habit of talking to the camera, of conveying your knowledge, being authentic, being yourself, and getting that content out there, because you will always be your worst critic. No one that watches your content is going to be as hard on you as you are. And if they are, it is because they are jealous. And that is not me just saying it. It is the honest to God truth. Anyone that takes the time to post, oh, you look, fill in the blank, or you suck, or whatever, that is jealousy on their part. So I ignore that. It's hard to receive it at first, but I just ignore that. And to be truthfully honest with you, in all of the years I've been on YouTube pretty consistently since probably about 2013, 2014. And I could probably count on one hand the number of negative comments that I've ever gotten. And I think I'm exaggerating. I don't even think I've probably gotten one, two at the most. It doesn't really happen. People don't really do that. And then another way is because we're in a world of AI. AI is making creating videos so much easier. So it is really a way to save a tremendous amount of time, is to use AI tools, whether you're using it to help you record your videos, to edit those videos, or to do everything. Because there are generative AI content creators that are out there, that creation tools, I should say, not creators, but generative AI content creation tools that are out there that will allow you to create your videos without you having to be in them. And they're getting better as we progress. So I would think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot more generative AI content on YouTube in particular.
I think that's really exciting for our listeners to think about, that video is growing, but it's also getting easier. So
Yes.
if you're not into it yet, what is really holding you back? I think you hit on a really important one, which is that fear of judgment and criticism. But I'd ask all of our listeners, is that fear really real? Or is it just kind of the story that you're telling yourself about why you're not jumping in, why your voice isn't being heard? And I think the other story that might come up for some people is, I don't want to be a YouTube star. I'm not
Mhm.
looking to get on YouTube and explode and be this big influencer. Is there still a place, Edie, in your opinion, for people who don't want to be, a huge influencer, but a space where they're still heard, a space where maybe they've got a small following? How does somebody who, really doesn't want to invest a lot of time into it, how do they jump in and be effective in the YouTube space?
Right. Well, you don't need to be a YouTube star in order to have a presence on that platform. And in fact, what I do with my audience is I'm only working with clients that do not want to become YouTube stars. I do not help you if you are interested in doing that, because that's a full-time gig. That is something, the protocol that you would have to go through in order for that to work is completely different than what you would need to do if you are a business owner, you are a service provider, and you want to simply use video and YouTube as a means to broaden your horizons, to expand your reach, to grow your business, and to get brand awareness. Two completely different avenues. And I don't help you become a YouTube star. So there are ways, and YouTube is large enough that there are a plethora of different types of people that are using it for different reasons. So if you want to use ideally the platform in order for you to become to use it as a tool, as a video marketing tool, there are definitely ways that you can do that. And it starts with the fact that you need to understand who your ideal audience is, what they specifically want. Can you provide them with what they want? And then can you provide it in a manner, whether it's consistent to weekly or consistent to monthly, whatever consistency looks like for you is what you would have to commit to. It's slow growing on YouTube. YouTube is not something where you post a video today and then all of a sudden tomorrow you have hundreds or thousands of views on it automatically. YouTube does not do it for you. There's still a lot of labor that you need to do and work in terms of marketing your content so that people will know that you're on there, because just because you post a video doesn't mean that everybody that has access to YouTube is going to see your content. YouTube recommends your content based on a number of different factors. And so you have to do a lot of the due diligence in the very beginning to make sure that your videos are seen. And that's things like sharing it on your other social media platforms, making sure that your email list, which I'm sure in your world, you're stressing the importance of an email list, something I did not do when I started my business. And I regret that to this day. But sharing that with your email list and sharing that on your website and various platforms that you're at, so that people can come in from outside of YouTube, find your content, and then by engaging with that content, viewing that content, commenting on that content, then YouTube is able to say, oh, okay, your content is resonating with people, and these people like to watch this type of content. So we're going to start to promote you a little bit more, and they're going to start putting you in the suggested field, or they're going to put you in the browse features and things of that nature. And then obviously if you're optimizing your content, because we cannot talk about YouTube and being able to get found without keyword optimization. So it's really important that the keywords that your ideal audience is using in the search engines when they're searching for your content is used in your title of your video and on your physically on your thumbnail. And then obviously you're talking about it in the context of your videos as well.
I hope all the salespeople just heard how important your email list is. And that's connecting you to your audience. If you've got an email list, there's a group that's waiting to hear an important message from you. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate that I keep hearing you say it's a focus on the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that everything you're creating is for your audience and it's not for yourself.
Right.
I think that's just such a a powerful thing to make sure that our listeners are really getting that the content creation, it's not about you. It's
Nope.
about your end client and how that helps them, how that solves the problem, how that creates growth for them, which is what we're
Yeah,
trying to do here on the
exactly.
podcast.
And then another piece of the email, since we were talking about emails, it's really important and to understand about the power of YouTube is that you can also use YouTube as a mechanism to grow your email list. So even though you do want people that are existing on your email list already to see the content that you are creating on YouTube and get them to subscribe to your channel, people that find you organically through search can also be someone that can get onto your email list because YouTube does give you the capability in your channel art. It gives you an opportunity for you to build your list by having some sort of a freebie that you can offer to your viewers that come onto your channel, as well as you can have call to actions on your videos. And I would craft them based on whatever the content of that particular video is. So if you're in sales and you're talking about the importance of building an email list, and maybe you can provide to your audience some checklist that would help them or some tool that would make that a lot more beneficial for them, then you definitely want to be able to offer that as a call to action. So in order for them to get that, they need to give you their email address and then you give them whatever the checklist or whatever it happens to be. And so those are instances where you can use YouTube as a means to build your email list. And once they're on your email list, you can sell to them to your heart's content. I wouldn't use videos to sell. YouTube videos are not videos that are for, I have this new product and it's so great. You need to buy it today. No, you don't do that on YouTube. YouTube is for information. It's for education. It's for if you want to share a thought-provoking thought on a particular topic. It's to entertain. People are coming there for a specific reason. They get inundated by ads all the time. They do not need to come onto your video to be pushed to buy your service. You'll always have an opportunity to do that later.
I'm thinking of the listeners who are subscribed to this podcast, and what stands out to me is I know that they are people who are, really brilliant communicators. They're people who walk into offices or walk into businesses and really articulately state, what they do, how they do it, what their company is all about. So they're already naturally great communicators that would translate so well on video. And then I'm thinking about the companies that have multiple products. And those products, there's bound to be something that people struggle with, or they don't understand once they've bought it exactly how to use it, or a tip or a trick. So I just want to encourage our listeners to be creative about the number of things you could do in relation to your job and how you could communicate that effectively through video if you're not already. How about we pivot, Edie, a little bit into stories? And we always love it when things work out perfectly, but life seldom does. And I want to know for you where a time where you went to communicate, you went to create some video content, and everything kind of went wrong. Something that didn't work out the way that you thought it was going to be when you jumped into creating content for yourself.
Well, I would have to say that probably was in the very beginning because I think a lot of people, and myself included when I first started, didn't really understand that there was a system in place that needed to be followed in order for you to create videos that were engaging, that people wanted to see, and that would really resonate and create engagement with your audience. And so when I first started, when I very first started using YouTube, I literally used it as a hosting site. So I just used it to throw all my videos up there that I was hosting on my website. And they were all like demo. They were all about me. This is what I can do for you. Check this out, And then once I started to realize that well, people are getting clients from YouTube and people are being able to make money. I just sort of looked at what other people were doing in my niche and I copied what they were doing with no concept of, well, what's the order in which they're doing this? Why are they doing this? What's the end result? I had no email list. So I wasn't, I didn't have people that were already on my email list that I could send to them to my YouTube channel so that I could get, views and things of that nature. And it took me a while before I realized that I needed to have the clarity and understanding, what am I good at? Don't follow what somebody else is doing. What am I good at? Because a lot of my videos when I first started were all about how to use YouTube. And I didn't want to get pigeonholed in that because that wasn't my thing at the time. I love YouTube and I wanted people to have success with it. But one of the biggest things that I found was the issue that my clients had was the lack of understanding how to create videos. So therefore that was my thing more so than how to use YouTube. Yeah, okay, I can do some of those. But I really wanted my audience to understand how they could use various tools to complete a task that they were trying to do. And so my beginning stages of when I first started on YouTube, it was all about me. And in some of those instances, I lucked out and I would get a lot of views on certain types of videos. But again, it wasn't the thing that I wanted to focus my energy on because I knew my audience, the audience that I was working with as one-on-one with clients, wanted a specific thing, and I wasn't providing that to them at the time. So once I started to do that, I then started to see that there were more engaging comments. I was getting decent amount of views. I've had videos that got into the hundreds of thousands of views, and that's great, but that doesn't mean anything if they're not engaging with you and if they're not then following you offline. And as I mentioned, my channel is fairly small, but I have a lot of my clients follow me offline and they ultimately end up hiring me for coaching or consulting, or in some instances, they will outsource their service to me. I did a presentation last week where I was talking in reference to a video that I had done. It was on a video editing tool. And I had posted the video and I think about 6 months went by and it had a decent amount of views, but nothing, to write home about. And I did it primarily because I was an affiliate for the product. So, obviously people would see the video and say, oh, wow, this is a great tool. Let me buy it. And so that's where I thought it was going to end with that. And I ended up seeing that I was getting a number of clients that were either wanting to consult with me or actually hire me to do the work from this one video. And in one instance, I think the video might have been on for about 8 months or something like that. This client ended up outsourcing her entire, she was doing a course. And so she outsourced that entire project to me to the tune of $10,000 that I got from just one video. So that's not a bad story, but that's just sort of, it's emblematic of what the possibilities are if you utilize it properly and if you understand exactly what the needs are of your audience. And so that's definitely a great benefit that you can get. But I've been there, done that, where I've done videos, my older videos, I refuse to look at. I've not deleted them, but I was horrible on camera. The lighting just was miserable. And I was somebody that came from a video background and it just wasn't the way that it should look. And as you progress, you get better, but I'm also a proponent of only using what you already have. So I use what I teach my audience to use, which is either a webcam or my smartphone, because you can use those two tools in order to create some really amazing looking videos. Now, they're not going to look like a video that's done with a professional video camera or even a DSLR, but it's still going to be clear and crisp enough for your audience to really enjoy it.
So you've got a quote in the background, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite quotes is, "It's not where you start, it's where you finish."
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you get started, if you're thinking about video content you haven't created, just jump in and get started.
Yeah.
And I love that you just brought up outsourcing
Mm-hmm.
because, okay, so say our listeners don't have the skill. Maybe the technical barrier is too much for them. Well, you can outsource it. You can
Yes.
have somebody do the editing. So if the excuse is, well, I can't use an editing platform and I don't know how to make it look great, just hit record on your smartphone, say your message, and let somebody else
Mm-hmm.
make it look acceptable to you.
Yeah. I do still also recommend that people will try it, at least try to edit
Mm,
their own videos just so that they have an understanding of the concept, because a lot of people will think, oh, I filmed a video, it's 5 minutes long, and they assume it's going to take 5 minutes to edit. And that's not the way that it works. So if they have an understanding, even if it's a very, very rudimentary and general understanding, they can recognize the impact that a video editor can have on their content. And at the end of the day, it depends on what the output is. What
mm,
is it that they want? Do they just want to have themselves on camera and it's just edited so that all of the silences and, any bad takes that they may have taken are out? Or do they want it to tell a story? And in a lot of instances, if they're telling a story, it has to be re-edited from the way that they conveyed the message. And you need to sometimes put in supplemental footage, which is called B-roll. And that helps tell the story a little bit better. And so it really all depends on what is the end result that the client wants.
all right. Let's move over to salespeople who are on the road right now. They're wanting some questions that they can either ask themselves or they can ask a client in terms of how video really is going to impact them, or how YouTube content is going to, create a different result for them. What
Mm-hmm.
type of questions would you have somebody ask themselves or ask their clients about,
Right. Well, like I mentioned before, they really need to know what's their why.
mm,
So if they're considering creating videos and creating YouTube videos in particular, why? And why would their audience want to hear what they have to say? Are they passionate about what they're talking about? I That's a question that I've asked myself a lot of times, and I'm sort of, I don't know. It's really hard for me to read myself, but it isn't until I talk to other people that they say, when I talk about video, I light up. So
mm,
when you know that you've gotten that feedback from somebody about whatever it is that's your niche, then you know that you're passionate about it. And that's definitely something that you want to share. You really, like we talked about before, you have to make sure that you're in it for them and not for you. It's not because you love being in front of the camera, for those of you who do. And it's not because you think you're so knowledgeable and you're just going to be spewing out all of this knowledge, or because you've seen people like the Gary Vaynerchuks and the, Tony Robbins of the world, and you see how their presence is, and you see how powerful they can be when they're conveying their message, and you want to mirror that. You have to earn your way up to that. So I never compare myself to anyone. I used to. That was a huge thing. I compared myself to people that were way out of my league. But unlike some people that might say, oh, I want to mirror that and I want to do it, it prevented me from being who I was, because I kept saying, I'm not them. I'm not like them. So you really need to make sure that you're in it for your audience, that you know who your audience is, and that you know the type of content that you want to create, because you know that they're going to be interested in that. So like I mentioned before, doing tutorial videos or answering frequently asked questions are two really good formats to this day that I think are really, really good. There's some really big people. I don't know if your audience has ever heard of Marie Forleo,
mm,
but she started her YouTube channel by answering a question. She did one question every single week. She would gather all the questions that she would get from her email list or from wherever, social media, whatever. And she would craft an entire video that was anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes long, just answering that question. And so she would start off her video with, here's the question from a viewer, blah, blah, blah. And this is their question. And then she would go in to answering it, and she would answer it in a really thorough manner that it made you really understand what it was that that person was asking, because she would go deeper than what even that question was. And so, and that was her claim to fame. That's how she blew up on YouTube, was simply answering one question a week. That was it. And who can ask for better content than that? You don't have to struggle. What am I going to talk about today? And, it's just you're answering a question. So it's really easy if you are able to just focus on what you can give to them. And I would the biggest question though, I would make sure that you ask yourself is, are you committed to the process? Because it's not going to be easy. Particularly now, YouTube is a lot larger. I've been in this game for 10 plus years now on YouTube, and it's not as fast to get found as it used to be. Not if you're using it as a tool. If you're wanting to become a YouTube star, I think that's a different world, because you're basically molding yourself into a specific niche. This one, it's you already know what the niche is, and you're trying to provide content that can help with your audience. So just make sure that you're prepared to invest the time and the effort, and in some instances, the money, because maybe you don't have an external webcam and you have to buy one. You definitely need to have a really good microphone, whether you're doing it on camera or if you're doing it from your phone. You need to sometimes invest in lights so that you can be seen, because visually, if you can't be seen, nobody's going to watch you. So you need to basically be able to do that. And then in the instance you need to outsource, do you have the funding to do that as well? So there are some key questions that you need to ask yourself in terms of, are you ready and are you prepared for this?
Oh, there's so many powerful questions there. I want to highlight this one. If you're driving to a client's office right now and you're going to be in front of them, just pay attention to what is it that your clients are asking you. What are the questions they're asking you? And that is the simplest place to start.
Yep.
Pick that question, because somebody else has the same question. And if you can answer it with your unique expertise, with your authenticity, with who you are, then that is going to be valuable to somebody else. Don't worry about if it's a million other people or 1,000 other people. Even if it's just a handful of people, then your voice using it's definitely worth it. And I want to highlight something that I think is one of the best questions that you just said that's been on the podcast so far. And it's, what are you passionate about? I think that's the most powerful one, and I see it as a coach all the time, because people do light up when they get passionate and they don't even realize it. And coaches, you can see that when you're coaching somebody. You're like, oh my God, did you just see your face?
Right.
And people don't even realize when you ask them, what are you passionate about? They're not sure, but when they get excited. So what is it that you're passionate about? That, because we can all talk about what we're passionate about for days, and maybe that is the place for people to start.
Yeah, I agree. And it wasn't something that I'd ever asked myself. I'd never asked myself, what are you passionate about? But I found that every time I spoke to someone about video and about the impact that video can have on your business, and specifically YouTube, people would say, oh my God, you just lit up. Like you, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's good to know. But I just never, it wasn't a question I ever thought to ask myself. And I don't even know if I would have back then been able to answer it and recognize that it was just, I've always loved video ever since I was a teen. I've loved the entertainment industry, but more from the entertainment industry, more so than what I'm doing now. But I'm still, in love with it. But I think the other part of the passion for me is helping people.
Mm.
And the piece that I loved is breaking down the process of creating videos and the tools that you can use simple and easy for someone that is overwhelmed by the process. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. People have told me that I have a very calming influence on them. So I'm able to explain things in a way where they're able to understand it. And when they stress and get freaked out, I'm my calmest. So that sort of balances us out in a way so that when I am working with a client, they're like, oh, okay, this wasn't as hard as I thought it was. And so that I think is what I absolutely love and I'm most passionate about. It's just helping people realize you can do this. This is not as difficult, but if you don't want to do it, there's someone here that can help you.
Well, you have brought so much value to our listeners. True to what you've been saying is focus on the audience, and our audience has. I hope you've been taking notes, everybody in the audience, because there's so many great things that our expert Edie Clarke has shared with us. So, Edie, any final thoughts for our listeners? Anything that we didn't cover that's on your mind, and where can people find you and connect to you so they can work with you?
Well, they can find me at edieclarke.com. That's EDIECLARKE.com. Or you can jump onto YouTube and just go into the search bar and do the @ symbol, Virtually in Sync. That's VIRTUALLYINSYNC. And I think we covered everything, but I just really want everyone to recognize that they shouldn't avoid using YouTube or video for their business. If you've been on the sidelines and you've been just saying, okay, not yet, not yet, not yet. There's never going to be a perfect time for you to jump in. I think right now you don't have to worry about having everything in order before you jump into it. If you look at anyone's YouTube channel, as great as they may be, go on to Gary Vaynerchuk's, go on to, there are some big, huge YouTube people, go on to their channels and go to their very first video and you will see how bad it was in comparison to what they're doing now. So just as long as you're able to start, I think that is beneficial. There are too many opportunities that you potentially could miss out on if you choose not to embrace YouTube. Is a thing that I have a program called Embrace YouTube. I'm just a firm believer in embracing it because there is a lot of power that's behind YouTube and video that will help you grow your business, create brand awareness, expand the reach that you're already doing organically. You don't need to put money behind it. And you can get a lot of views to your content through YouTube. And so I think if you consider yourself an expert in your niche, you have a wealth of knowledge that you are passionate about sharing with your ideal audience, then YouTube video is for you.
Well, Edie, we're at the end of the podcast. So for all those listening and who have stayed here till the end, stop listening to us. Take Edie's advice. Take my advice. Pull over to the side of the road. Go immediately to your phone. Start recording your first video. Jump in on the thing that you're most passionate about so that your voice can be heard. I want to thank Edie Clarke for being on our podcast.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
This has been the Sales Problem Podcast. So please remember to follow us, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends. And if you have any feedback, please email us at thesalesproblempodcast@gmail.com. And remember, the more you know, the more you can grow. And we're here to help you get the growth you need to thrive and succeed. We are the Great Canadian Growth Guys, and we are getting answers to solve the sales problem. So keep growing your business, growing yourself, and growing your sales.